What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadicstick. I was gonna make a Sonic Unleashed video today, but I didn't remember that I needed to make this video, so you're welcome. But this is more so a follow-up to my Sonic Forces vs Sonic 06 video. In that video, I described what made Sonic Forces a better game than Sonic 06, whether it be things like it being technically better or just overall its concept and game design. It's not the most in-depth video I've posted on my channel because it's mostly in rant form, but I highly suggest you watch that video. But with that being said, let's talk about today's topic, and that's Sonic Unleashed versus Sonic Generations. I won't be talking about the Werehog or Classic Sonic in this video because I have another video actually planned for that. Today I'll just be talking about the boost gameplay, and I won't be bringing up things like story or graphics like I did in the Sonic Forces video because I think this is a much more complex topic than Sonic Forces versus Sonic 06, and I think there's a lot more discussion to be warranted about what makes these games good. But let's talk about the boost style. It was introduced in Sonic Rush, and then Sonic Unleashed was the first, entry of the mainline 3D series to actually include it. And I have to say, I think that's probably one of the best things Sonic Team could have chose to do. I mean, even when Sonic Unleashed released, this was a highly praised portion of the game. Many people loved the boost, but the boost does suffer from a few issues, specifically in Unleashed. I think the first issue is control scheme. I just think it's ridiculous for Sonic to have boost mapped to the same button as homing attack, and this becomes much more apparent after going between the two games, and even a game like Colors. And the reason I bring that up is because you just feel like you have less options in the air to control Sonic's movement and momentum. I think one of the best blessings in disguise that we've ever gotten from the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise has been the homing attack, and even in Sonic Colors and Sonic Forces, the double jump. They're another movement option that ultimately allows the player to, move large distances or save themselves in time of, maybe falling. Sometimes it even acts as essentially a little speed boost or a way to gain momentum and push yourself through the stage. The fundamental problem with Unleashed having homing attack and boost mapped to the same button is that that option is taken away. So there are a lot of stages, most notably stages like Chunan Day, where I feel like the homing attack really would have come in handy, but because of the way the game functions, you just can't do it, at least unless there's an enemy. Because if there's no enemy there, you can't do the homing attack. And before a random Unleashed fanboy gives me his college dissertation on why I'm wrong and the highly specific situation in which you can use a homing attack when, not locked onto an enemy. Another thing that I feel like Unleashed sorely lacks is, I guess, a certain level of tightness that Sonic Generations has. One thing I can say about Sonic Generations is that anytime I screw up, or most of the times, like 99.99% of the times that I screw up, it is never the game screwing me over, whether that be because of Sonic's core gameplay or because of the level design. Whereas I feel like with Unleashed, I don't have control over Sonic at all times. It feels like Sonic is just too fast for what they actually designed in the stages. On top of that, Sonic doesn't particularly control well in the sense that he's very slippery. Anytime that you have to make a turn or you have to make any slight movements, and even in quick step sections, it just feels like Sonic wants to drift left or right. It feels like you overshoot things with Sonic, and especially when you're doing any type of boost jumping or using boosts in any type of situation where you may you're trying to shoot past something, you go way too far. And it takes a really long time for Sonic to, come to a halt. And I don't think that's good. In Sonic Generations, it always feels like I have some semblance of control over Sonic. When I need Sonic to stop, I can reliably jump and stop. In Sonic Unleashed, if I jump and stop, there's a high chance that I may slide, I may just move around whilst doing the jump. There's no telling. And I don't know if that's because the controls are too sensitive or they're not sensitive enough. Sonic just feels really slippery. And compound that with his speed, and so there are just a lot of times where you don't have a fun time because you're getting through the stage, you're having fun, and they throw challenge after challenge towards you, but you really can't dodge it because Sonic is too fast and he hits the next thing, and even though you're doing what you're supposed to, whether that be boosting through the air or homing attacking, Sonic just will overshoot or undershoot whatever you want him to do. It just never really feels consistent like it does in Generations. The next thing I want to talk about is actually the level design philosophy, and this is probably where I feel like a lot more people are going to be a lot more divisive. While I do feel like Unleashed has a lot of good design elements in its levels, I feel like it has a lot of really rushed or just not fleshed out ideas. On top of that, I feel like there's just times where it's generally or genuinely unfair. I think the best example of this is Cool Edge, because there's so many times in that stage where you're having fun and you just get screwed over by the ice physics, and you can argue, oh, it's an ice stage, but I feel like they shouldn't affect you to that degree. And sometimes Unleashed will do the dimps thing, where they'll put a random bottomless pit somewhere, or they'll throw you in an area where it's easy to fall into a bottomless pit and you wouldn't know it. There's a small section I remember in Shamar that had this specifically, and even in stages like Empire City. And there's a lot of great parts of Empire City, but I feel like there's so many times where the game wants you to have such a level of precision that they don't hand you themselves, that I sit there and go, really? You wanted me to do that? Because when you compound the controls, some of the stage design makes less sense. Again, Empire City, there's parts of the stage where the rails on the left and right side of the walls, left and or right, you know what I mean, side of the walls aren't there. And even though Sonic Team has learned from that mistake, for the most part, that usually implements barriers on the sides so that when you turn, that you don't fly off. There's so many times where I fly off the side of the stage in Empire City, and I just wonder why. I also feel like in many ways, Sonic Generations has reached a level of Sonic level design and gameplay design that has been unmatched. Sonic Generations has so many multiple paths that people are still finding new paths to this day. There was a path in Crisis City that was found, I think, last year that many people didn't know about. I recently found the lower path in Speed Highway because my controller was bugging out in Generations. Like, I didn't know this lower path existed in this stage, or at least this version of the stage. But now that I know that it exists, it actually inclines me to find new pathways and stages and figure out just how much work and time Sonic Team put into having the player be able to find these paths. I think the best example of level design or Sonic level design is Seaside Hill. Many, including myself, consider this to be the greatest stage in the entire series. And I'm not talking about this is my favorite stage. It's not. I mean, my favorite stage in the game is City Escape. I say Two Boys for life. It's just that when I look at Seaside Hill, I see all of the hard work that's come from the Sonic franchise and the blood, sweat, and tears, and it culminates in what is ultimately probably a masterclass in not just Sonic level design, but platformer and video game level design, period. There's so much flexibility. There's so many different pathways. Even every single pathway you take will have two separate pathways within that pathway. And this is the type of exploration that I like to see in Sonic games. Many people say they like to explore in Sonic levels. I don't like to explore in the same sense as other people. I really don't care about all the random knickknacks in a stage. I want to see how fast I can get through a stage and all the paths that I can go down and all my options. I always want to know what's the next option for me in that stage as I'm going through the level. And while I think Unleashed to some degree has a lot of multiple paths depending on what stage you're playing, it always feels like I'm on one set path and then that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sonic Adventure 2 does the exact same thing, and that's my favorite 3D Sonic game. But I feel like when you want to best represent the series and show what the series is about and the sheer potential of what the series has, and then reach that potential, I think you should look towards Sonic Generations, because it honestly shows just how good Sonic Team can be and has been. And that's not to bash Unleashed. Chunan Day is one of my favorite stages in the entire Sonic the Hedgehog series, even though there's some problems with that stage because, again, like I told you before, the homing attack and the boost being mapped to the same button kind of kills some of the platforming sections in that stage. It's still one of my favorite stages in the Sonic franchise. It's amazing. And it's honestly one of those stages that's super well designed. And I think if you get the chance to play it play it, whether that be the Unleashed project, Sonic Unleashed itself, however you play it. Just experience it. But overall, I'd like to know what you think. This is less of a rant because I think there's actually discussion to be had here. Which game do you think tackles level design and player control better? Sonic Generations or Sonic Unleashed? While I, do commend Unleashed on its original ideas, I feel like Sonic Generations just represents the series a lot better. Even though that all the stages are stages that we previously had, they all have their own unique identity through that generation's lens. And I think that's something to appreciate. When I play Chemical Plant Zone in Sonic Generations, well, it gives me the same feeling as when I play it in Sonic 2. It doesn't feel like the same stage. And again, that's worth talking about. Just how unique is the level design and just the lens that Sonic Generations introduces. But hey, that's it for now. This has been your man Shadicstick, and I'm out of here. Remember, Hot Faraga turns to Cold Blizzaga. Chill out some of my other videos.